All right, this is the Oz report for June 22nd, 2025. No, let me try that again. This is the Oz report for June 22nd, 2025. I am back from having missed last week with the flu, and we just spent the better part of the stream talking about the fact that CCP is up for sale. So if you're interested in that, go and have a look at the recording on Twitch for that, or on YouTube. Probably going to be putting it up on YouTube as well. But we're also going to do a quick Oz report to have a look at the market. It's going to be a little shorter today, but there are some things that I do want to mention. I want to start with the fact that in the New Eden store, there is a 2-for-1 sale going on right now for the mastery packs or skill point packs. So it is actually a very effective way of buying skill points. On the downside, you do need Plex for it, and we all know how Plex has been in very, very low supply lately. And so let's start with that. Let's jump in with Plex and Plex adjacent prices today by looking at the in-game graph. And even though the sale is a very good value that is going on right now in the New Eden store, Plex prices have not exploded this week as they have been. Actually, we've been on a downward trajectory since about May, I would say. Part of this could be because as people might be returning for Legion and for the large war that is going on right now, they might be buying into Plex to generate liquidity for whatever reason and actually putting that up on the market. So if we're looking at Plex overall, the volume has been quite good. So we are seeing that Plex is hitting the market. We are seeing that people are likely buying the Plex to take advantage of the sale, but the prices are very much under control, which is a positive signal compared to other New Eden store sales that we've had in the past few months, where every time there's a good sale out there, the prices spike. So overall, for Plex liquidity, this is a rather good sign. If we're looking at Plex adjacent items, skill extractors are still very cheap, right? So reeling from the big sale that we saw in April, it's still time to stock up on skill extractors if you need to. We are seeing a clear trend up over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So a few percentage points up. Still, the prices are sub 450 million though, so they're still comparatively cheap. And to round off the skill farming trifecta with Plex skill injectors and injectors, large skill injectors, very, very, very cheap. And we talked about this earlier on stream. There are various factors why this is the case. One, the massive skill extractor sales are still pushing down skill injectors. The cheaper the skill extractors are, the cheaper the production of injectors is going to be. Two, there were a metric shit ton of Master at Arms cerebral accelerators dumped into the market over the last few weeks by, as far as I understand it, one streamer. And so those were wildly popular, and they just pushed down the average price for a skill point, which also doesn't help large skill injectors. And on top of that, we have the continuing mega trends that these massive skill extractor sales and omega sales are just going to increase the number of skill farms that are running. And the more skill farms you are running, the more you're going to see large skill injector prices fall. And while overall the 12-month Plex subscription skill farming formula is significantly negative, if you consider that most skill farms have dropped their price bottom so much by taking advantage of the 2-for-1 sales, those people are still making billions a month per account. And so it does make sense that large skill injectors continue to fall. And to be honest, right now in this current environment, I don't see any reason for them to bounce back right now. So it looks like we're just going to have cheap skill injectors for the time being. Let's also quickly take a look at Hypercores, because Hypercores, ever since that last 2-for-1 sale last fall, last October, there hasn't been really a lot of movement in the market. I think there's a lot of capital tied up in Hypercores, and people are just kind of tired of it, and that's why it's not bouncing back. People that need cash occasionally just dump a whole bunch of these onto the market. Now, this week, we just saw a bunch of market shenanigans going on here. We saw 1-day average pricing being 35K, which is almost certainly a fat finger. But then we also saw the prices jump to 350,000, which we discussed early on stream might have been the market running out temporarily. But either way, fat fingers, low availability, lots of weird stuff going on. Overall, still though, prices aren't that much different. So if you look at a sell price for Hypercores right now, it's still 340,000, which is slightly up from where it was, but I think not territory yet where large investors are going to be dropping these. So still no good news for investors on the Hypercore side. The only good news is that people with gambling addiction can continue to cheaply gamble. All right. Let's jump back to the overall dashboard here, and let's talk about overall macroeconomic movements since the last stream, meaning since Legion, since Babarogga, etc., etc. So while the last time we spoke, we saw almost across the board rising raw material prices, what we're seeing now is almost across the board dropping prices. And that means that this initial push to massively buy up raw materials to get the war machine going, to build tons of dreads, to get everyone ready, has kind of died off. So we're in a much more realistic place now where moon materials across the board are dropping 5 to 15%. So moon materials getting cheaper again, even basic minerals dropping 5% overall, tier 1 salvage dropping 10%, colony reagents dropping 10%, wormhole gases dropping 10%. So almost across the board, raw materials are getting cheaper. The one big exception is ice products. So ice up 22% this week. Ice is needed for fuel, for movement across the galaxy, especially for large alliance size movements, and also needed for reactions to get production going, especially moon materials, so tier 2 productions. And so ice right now in very, very high demand. So good news for all the ice farmers out there. If you're sitting on ice right now, it's a good time to probably sell. We have to talk about the Babarogga, as we talked in the last weeks quite frequently. All right. I'm going to jump back in here and pull up the 0-point field manipulators. Okay. The last few weeks, I kept saying, hey, 0-point field manipulators are going to drop rather quickly once the Babarogga madness dies down. And every week, I put my foot in my mouth and say, well, maybe it's not this week. Because to be honest, prices keep rising. And we're back over 1 million a pop for 0-point field manipulators. And the only real explanation for that is that there just isn't enough 0-point field manipulators going around. And apparently the stockpiles weren't large enough. And I'm part of this. I have large stockpiles. I'm trying to put these on the market as quickly as possible. But on the other hand, there seems to be still a lot of demand, a lot of hunger for these Babaroggas. Not nearly as much as when they came out, but still the market isn't being replenished fast enough to quell this demand. And so what we're seeing is, on the one hand, we're still seeing 9 to 10 billion price point for the Babaroggas, which should come down eventually to more like 5.6, 5 or 6 billion. But we're also seeing continued high prices for 0-point field manipulators. And so I can only say, and I stand by it, if you have these, this now is the time to sell. Eventually, these are going to be coming back down. If you know anything about EVO 9 economy, there's always this crazy hype in the beginning, and it will die down, and people will start farming this stuff more, and people will be getting tired of the new ship, or the new ship might be nerfed at some point. And so at some point, this is going to clearly come down. But apparently not today, because today in JITA, we're still sitting at 1 million a pop, as I was saying. And, that is even up from last week. So we are seeing a lot of high tier 2 abyssal component prices, or abyssal material prices. the tier 1 abyssal materials, so your 0-point condensate and your crystalline isogen 10, they have since corrected and partially overcorrected, because there's just comparatively not a lot of those needed to create a Babarogga. It's much more the 0-point field manipulators and the other tier 2 components, right? If we look at the rest of Eve, let's go and look at our online dashboard here. That is right here. Let me share that with you on screen. So this is the Oz.space. This is the dashboard that you can use every day to inform your own trading in EVE Online. If we're looking at a few things here, one is this is the items that are trending up. So we're seeing, for example, the hypercores that I mentioned. We're also seeing dread components here that are going up in price, as you would expect from the battle reports that we have seen. The number one highest trading versus last week item is actually the Entosis link, so that has to do with soft warfare, and that's also not surprising, but interesting to see. If we're looking at on the trending downside, this is dominated by two items. One is the Pith X-type thermal shield hardener. Dead space items, that's just typically dependent on what is the fit of the week that is being bought out. Dead space modules are looted, not built, so there's a finite supply, and if there's a hot build right now that an alliance or a stream or whatever is pushing, then these go up in price, and they quickly also drop back down in price if those preferences change or the prices just become way too high for people to be able to afford them. The second thing is your medium core defense field extender. That's a shield rig. It's a very, very, very popular rig, and it's easy to make, but also the stocks can be bought out rather quickly if there's a large alliance building a large amount of cheaper ships, which these tier 1 shield rigs are. And so it's very, very possible that people come in, buy thousands of these for their alliance or for their core, and then producers come in and produce large amounts of these and replenish these supplies. So that's why you're seeing a lot of market movements in those. On the short supply side, so what is sold out in JITA, it's interesting to point out that we have high-grade Nirvanas being gone. So the Epsilon, the Delta, and the Beta are all pretty much gone from JITA. So that means that people have bought out the markets of these items. And when I say gone, what it is typically there are about 18 on the market, and right now there's 0 on the market of the high grade Nirvana Epsilons, and for the Delta is 19 typically, and now there's 0, and the daily trade volume is about 20, and the weekly sales volume is about 130. So typically 130 sets of these are traded, and right now there's 0 left, and that shows you a very, very high popularity for these Nirvana implants right now. I want to talk about highest trade volume items to finish off today's Oz report. We've talked about this quite a lot recently. If you're wondering, why ice prices are going up, nitrogen isotopes, the 4th highest traded item yesterday and the 5th highest traded item last week. That is massive, right? That is in this case used as I said, as fuel and reactions for tier 2 production. Whenever it's spiky, it's typically fuel related, because those are just massive troop movements and people, alliances going in, buying up large amounts of these isotopes for strategic purposes. And so those are big. And then we have the Babarogga still. Number 5, highest traded yesterday at 138 billion. And looking at last week, number 7 highest traded item last week with about a trillion traded per week. And that is truly, truly, truly massive. Overall, if we're looking at the daily trade volume or the weekly trade volume last week, 173 trillion. That is still about 50% higher than our typical average. So overall in the economy, this is a very, very good sign because we're seeing a lot of trades going on, not only Babarogga related, but also war related. And whenever you see items being produced, items being destroyed, items being traded, that is a very, very good sign for EVE Online. It just says that things are happening, content is being created, fun is being had. And so overall, this is a very, very good place for the EVE economy to be in. All right. We're going to leave it at that. That's the Oz report for June 22nd, 2025. We're going to return to the regular stream. I'll see you guys next